Victor versus Viserai isn't a matchup I get to bring you guys very often, but with Rosetta coming out very soon, I'm expecting to see a lot more Viserai. Over the last little bit, Viserai has really fallen off the map, but with new equipment like Face Purgatory and new attack actions like Hit the High Notes, I think we're going to see a real big uptick in Viserai, which means you need to be prepared for it at your next event. Guardian has traditionally struggled into Viserai, mostly because of the split damage that Viserai can do. He can stack up 6 to 8 rune chants and make your hand pretty awkward. But cards like Test of Strength and Trounce really give us a chance in Victor to pitch a blue, block with a block card, and then still keep cards for offense on our turn. Cards like Chokeslam, Spinal Crush, anything that can disrupt them and really put them on the back foot. Thanks for stopping by, guys. I hope you enjoy the match. All right, we're playing against Viserai and we're going first. I think we're just going to pitch the Cranial Crush. If we rip into a blue, it was like we have a pretty decent hand. So I think we're just going to throw the hammer here on turn 0, arsenal the Pummel, hold the Test of Strength. Seems like a solid play. One thing to catch pretty early on in the game is that one, they're playing Nebula Blade, which is not very surprising. I think a lot of Viserai builds are going to be playing this moving forward. And then the other thing that's interesting is Face Purgatory. This card kind of works like a Scowling Flush Bag with the Pummel effect. So we have to be careful. We have to arsenal Pummel, wait for a good opportunity, and kind of play around that as if it was Scowling Flush Bag. So it's one of those interesting interactions that hasn't really come up yet, but I think it's important to remember that it's there because they can block with multiple cards and they can get a lot of value out of it. Our hand's not looking super productive, so I guess we'll just block like this, see how our clash turns up. We do win with a Thunk, which is pretty solid. I mean, it gives us 4 mites, but our hand's not looking super promising here. I could throw the Debilitate for 10. That doesn't seem bad. I am forced to go to 36 if we make that play. The other play we have is to block with 2 cards and then throw hammer for 8. I think this is okay. There's no on-hit effects. There's like nothing backbreaking here. I think this is perfectly okay. One of the other things I'm going to talk about a little bit throughout the match is how we are playing Crown of Dominion in this matchup with Aurum Aegis. It is one of the things that I think is kind of interesting about how I choose to play this matchup. Now that may change as we see more, more Rosetta builds and more things like that, but I think that running Crown of Dominion is just actively correct early on. Oh, please block with your headpiece. If they block with their headpiece here, that is such a W for us. It's not even crazy. It's not even. I can't even begin to fathom how good it would be for us if they blocked with the headpiece this early on. I have the Pummel. I'm going to play the Pummel. It establishes a little bit of pressure, gives us a life total advantage, gives them a crush effect, and they go down to 1 card in hand. So taking 4 to be able to turn around and throw 14 seems like a pretty good play. We force multiple cards to their hand and kind of put them in the back, on the back foot, and in a little bit of an awkward position. Drawing 2 clash cards is unfortunate. They are going to take the Swarming Gloomveil. We might as well pitch the Cranial Crush, right? It's like we're going to have to defend the Rune Chant anyway. We are still going to block with the Trounce. I think I am going to target myself. We would like to win the Trounce if we can. Winning an extra gold that we destroyed off the Golden Sun feels really good. And with Tunic coming up, we can throw the Disable. I guess we don't even need the Disable. We can just pitch the Test of Strength and keep the Tunic. I mean, yeah, it's for 8. Threatens their arsenal. We might as well. It's just good pressure. We're just, again, like this is just a good rhythm of the game. The Swarming Gloomveil was only for 1, but considering they had no cards in hand, it is still, in my opinion, just actively correct to give up the Trounce. Now, it's also correct to give up the Trounce there because we had the Test of Strength in case they did find a way to throw the Nebula Blade at us, but it didn't look like Nebula Blade was going to come in, so blocking with the Trounce on the first thing they throw is actually a very good play for us. All right, so we're still applying pressure. We're still keeping them on the back foot. Things are still feeling pretty good here. Zealous Belting looks a little awkward with his hand, but it was only a blue Mauvrian Skies. Okay, so they literally just trying to make this happen. Yep. I think I'm just going to take 4 here. I don't like giving them a rune chant, but I think it's okay for me to pitch Boulder Drop to play the estate. Actually, I wonder if I'm supposed to use Tunic to play the estate. Guess it depends on what we draw. No, we're just supposed to use Tunic, I think. No, we're just supposed to use Boulder Drop. So we're just going to go to 31 here and give them a rune chant. I'm not a huge fan of giving them a rune chant to go into their next turn with. I think that's ultimately a bad thing for us, but... that's awkward. So 2, 3, 4, 5. We can throw Spinal Crush here if we're willing to give up Tunic. Man, feels a little awkward, but we do have 6 mites for next turn, and we are attacking them for 9. Now, the fact that they're blocking with non-attack actions like that feels really good. And then we're setting up our 6 mites for next turn, which is honestly kind of exactly where we want to be. We get to pitch the Trounce. Ooh, can we just play the Command and Conquer here? I mean, Command and Conquer for 12 feels pretty good. This is a pretty solid line. It's also pretty unlikely that they can block 12 from hand easily. 11, and they're going to give us the Grasp. Okay, so they're really protecting that Arsenal. Arsenal must be a very powerful card. I kept the Trounce because I assumed that, honestly, they would be willing to just let it go. Was kind of my thought process there. So we're going to pitch... We're going to pitch the Trounce and the Thunderquake here and throw the red Chokeslam. They are probably... I don't think we've seen Runic Reckoning yet, but I assume that they're playing, like, Runic Reckoning. They're playing some kind of buff spells here. Now, like, Hit the High Notes is obviously a card that wants the buff. And I assume that there are others that they're playing that are, like, actually reliant on the Chokeslam text being kind of relevant here in the middle of the game. I feel very questionable arsenaling this blue disable, but I think with the Test of Strength in our hand, I think it's an okay decision for us to make. Looking at this hand off the top of my head, it looks like we're going to be pitching Boulder Drop for Arcane Barrier and using the Test of Strength, but it also depends on what they attack us with. It's a 1 cost. Okay, so this actually really pans out. We get to pitch this to block the Rune Chant, and then we get to block with Test of Strength. Just getting a lot of value here. It's a very good looking turn for us. They're also really interested in protecting their arsenal, so I think I'm interested in just throwing 7. This also does represent Pummel with the Tunic counter up, so there's a chance that they give us the Face Purgatory here, that since they're trying to protect their arsenal, they were trying to protect it a little bit earlier, so I'm hoping that they still might be trying to protect it. Okay, this is great. I mean, I assume they're also going to give a non-attack action because they would like to get the effect of me discarding it. Now, no. Interesting. Okay, I have to say, did not see that coming. I was expecting them to block with a non-attack action to try and get a card out of my hand. So we're going to end up taking the Rune Chant here. And this is going to be for 5. So since we have the Trounce in hand, I'm going to block with Trounce and the Auramegus here. We're going to be blocking both on-hit effects and hopefully getting the Trounce. We are going to target ourselves, and we do win the first one, but we have double Rouse the Ancients on top, which is pretty unfortunate. That is a little sad to see, I won't lie. Ooh, Revel's a good one. Okay, so they were protecting a Revel. I mean, it makes sense. Revel's a very strong card. I completely understand why they want to protect it. All right, so we take the Rune Chants, fall down to 24, and then they're going to come in with Nebula Blade, and we're just going to block with 2 cards. I want to... actually, that might just be wrong. Since they're going to lose the Rune Chant, it doesn't matter if we give it to them, so we can block with the E-Strike. We could actually just take 4 and throw 5 go again into 8. I think it's better to take 1, throw the Chokeslam, and then arsenal the Spinal Crush. Since the Revel's going to cost them the Rune Chant anyway, it doesn't really matter. So I think we're getting a lot of value out of this. This feels like a very solid line for us because they're probably going to give us at least 1 or 2 cards. The other thing that's worth noting is like we've seen a couple of power cards from them already, and they're winning the life total race against us right now, but they're down to 29 cards. And when they get to the very bottom few cards of their deck, it's going to be nothing but just these blues and like some of these awkward cards they've been pitching. So I'm hoping that we can get a ton of value out of that. Because fatiguing them kind of happens before most people realize. They make a Rune Chant and pass, which allows us to go Rouse into Command and Conquer. So this is 7 into 6, which is really good. We also could have just made the line of throwing the Spinal Crush here, but the Command and Conquer demands 2 cards, or they give up their arsenal. Okay, that's really interesting. Have to say I did not see that coming. All right, well, we'll see how this plays out. We'll see how this feels. Machinations of Dominion gets overpower, and if you played or created an aura this turn, it gets go again. Okay, so this is overpower and go again. I think we'll take the Rune Chant. And then this does have overpower, but I don't think I care. We're just gonna block 3. I mean, we don't care about the overpower, but ooh, what are we creepering in? Is it Revel? Okay. Creepers into Revel is a very, very strong play for them because it means now that they have 6 damage we cannot prevent, which is ultimately a little disappointing, to be honest. Like, we're just kind of forced to take this and fall down 6. Now, the Nebula Blade comes in for 4. I think I'm just going to block with the E-Strike and give them the Rune Chant since it does not matter. The Rune Chant just, like, actually doesn't matter because of the Revel. And I'm going to check. I think that might be all 3 Revels. And then this gives us the ability to fall down to 14. So we're at 14. We're still in a pretty good spot. And then from here, we're just going to throw Spinal Crush back at them, demanding 2 cards from their hand, which is a pretty good place to be in. We've only seen 1 Sonata, I think. That's 1 Revel. 2 Revels. Okay, so there's 1 more Revel. At least at a quick glance, it looks like there's 1 more Revel. I love that they're having to block with Mordred Tide right there. Okay, so there's Sonata number 2. They do hit. They can take a Spellblade Strike or a Dread Triptych here. They also revealed a Runic Reckoning. I mean, these cards are probably 6 of one, a half a dozen in the other. They take a Dread Triptych. We're just going to take the Rune Chant, fall to 13. Being able to throw Command and Conquer Pummel at them would have a lot of value for us. Yeah, I'm willing to block 4 to deny them the Rune Chant here. We'll just deny them the Rune Chant, and then since Tunic is coming up, we have CNC Pummel right here. And this is probably the nail in the coffin. Like, they're at 8. We probably don't actually literally just win this turn, but I think pretty much no matter what happens from here, the game is kind of ours for the taking. Like, it's our game to lose at this point. They're down to 19 cards. Like, 10 with a Pummel effect is really strong. I don't know if they're like kind of conceding here. Maybe they're saying if you had it, I can't beat it regardless. They probably were thinking if you had it, I can't beat it regardless, so I'm not going to play around it. The first thing I want to talk about is my equipment setup and how I had the deck built. You'll notice I was running cards like Zealous Belting and I was on Crown of Dominion. I'm on Crown of Dominion and Zealous Belting originally in this matchup because against OTK Viserai, you need all the pressure you can get and you want to be putting them on the back foot as much as possible so that they can't throw a massive Arc Knight Ascendancy at you and just kill you out of nowhere. I do think moving forward, the Victor deck needs to be changed to where you're running Crown of Providence and you're playing less 2-blocks to where you're playing a little bit more of a value mid-rangey style game plan and less of an aggro Victor. I do have to admit the 3 mites from the first turn did line up very well and allowed me to pummel my blue Debilitate and throw it for 14. So that does feel pretty good, but I still think it's correct for us to be on a little bit more of a mid-range value slower plan into the new Viserai. On turn 5, I was able to throw Command and Conquer for 12 off the back of a Visit Goldmane Estate, and I have to say this felt really good. Getting every single card from our opponent's hand while getting the Grasp of the Arknight felt insanely good and also gave us a lot of info to let us know that they were really protecting their arsenal. On turn 7, I threw a blue Disable representing Pummel with my Tunic counter. My opponent blocks with a card from hand and with a Face Purgatory. Not getting the text off of Face Purgatory, leaving themselves open to a Pummel. I didn't have it, so it didn't really matter. But just thinking about this play is really interesting because they would have been able to block with 2 cards from hand and the Face Purgatory, make me discard my card to come off of my Pummel or an Arsenal, and they would have been able to keep a 3-card hand, which I think would have been more correct. I'm assuming that they wanted to keep the hand they had because they felt like it generated a lot of offense, but I still think there was a better play for my opponent there. On turn 11, I just drew the Command and Conquer Pummel, and I throw it at my opponent, and you notice that they say no blocks and just kind of let the game in there when I had the Pummel. I think they were just kind of saying, you know what, I'm willing to lose my Arsenal and go to 2 to try to keep a really good hand here to try and put you on the back foot a little bit. Now, admittedly, I was at 13, so they were going to have to do quite a bit of damage to really put themselves in a winning position, but turns out the Pummel was just going to close the game out for us. Guys, if you see anything you think I missed, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear about it. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy, guys.